What's going on, everybody? Corey with Corey's Computer Repair, back with another helpful tutorial video. Today I am going to show you how to daisy chain two Antec Prizm controllers. I got them both right here. I'm right in the middle of a build, so don't mind the cable mess. So let me show you. Let's get started here. So I already have all of the RGB 3-pin connectors connected. I have all of the 4-pin fan connectors connected. Everything is pretty much wired. I'm not going to get into the basics on how to provide the SATA power. I'm sure you could figure that out. But the one thing people keep asking about that I don't see online is, how do you daisy chain these? How do you get these to sync up? For the purposes of this build, with it being a B450 board, there is no 5-volt 3-pin RGB header on this motherboard, so I'm going to be using the mode button on the controller to control the fans, but I need to sync them up. I have 8 fans, okay? Each controller supports 5 fans, right? So how do I do that? Well, let's assume this controller on the left is the secondary controller, right? And I need to hook up to the primary. So the first thing you want to do is make sure there's an available 3-pin RGB port and a 4-pin fan port on the primary controller that you're going to use. Now, what I mean by primary is the main PWM LED cable, this guy right here. This is the one that's going to hook up to the motherboard. So that's why I call this controller the primary, because the cable coming off of that is going into the motherboard. Well, Corey, what about the cable from the other controller? Where's that going? That's what I'm going to get into. That's where the daisy chaining comes into play. Okay, so here's the secondary controller. Right? I'm going to grab the cable from that one. This is supposed to go into the motherboard, but that's not where we're going to connect it. Can you guess where we're going to connect them? Right into the RGB 3-pin connector and into the 4-pin fan connector. So I'm going to take this cable coming off the secondary controller, and I'm going to find the 4-pin. There's a couple available slots here. Let me get it in view so you guys could see. Okay, I'm going to go with the fan 4-pin first. We're going to go ahead and plug that into a fan spot on the primary controller. It doesn't matter what port as long as it's available. And I have a 3-pin RGB coming off the secondary that I'm going to plug in. There we go. So now I have the secondary controller, and it's plugged in right here to the PWM LED. It's this tiny cable, and if we follow this cable, it is plugged into the 4-port fan header and the 3-pin RGB. Okay, so now that these two are daisy chained and connect together, all you need to do is not on the secondary, but the primary. That's, remember, this is what's controlling the secondary controller and all the fans. You need to turn your system on, and right here, find the mode button. This button right here that my thumb's on is the mode button. What I'm going to do is, when the system is on, I'm going to hold this button down for 5 to 6 seconds, and all the LEDs are going to blink 2 or 3 times and then be in sync. From there, I could then start pressing the mode button and cycling through the different light modes. Now, if you want to connect up to your motherboard, remember I said I was going to touch on this, on the primary controller, you have another one of these cables. This is where the 3-pin would connect to a 3-pin 5-volt on the motherboard, and then the 4-pin fan would connect to a 4-pin fan header on the motherboard, and then that would be lighting controller, or excuse me, would be lighting control with like Aurora Sync or any of the other software out there. But for me, I'm not going to connect these. I'm going to kind of tuck this away, and I am going to be using the mode button. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we do that here so you could actually see it happen. And here we go. Okay, so I got the system on, and as you can see, all of the RGB fans are working, but they're not in sync. And one thing I should have mentioned prior was we also want to make sure the secondary controller is in the correct mode to accept lighting modes from the primary controller. So in order to do that, we're actually going to hold down the mode button on both RGB Prizm controllers, not just the primary. This is going to tell the secondary controller that, hey, I'm listening for modes connected to the first controller. Otherwise, if I reset the primary and I press the buttons on the primary, nothing's going to happen to the secondary. The secondary will be just in one of its built-in modes and not listening to the primary controller. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I'm going to do here is press the mode button down on both the primary and secondary controller that are daisy chained together. So let's do that now, and I will start counting until I see it blink. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there we go. I'm going to let go. Now they're off. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to the primary controller and press the mode button once. And look at that. Now I'm going to press the mode button again. That one's usually the best, kind of the rainbow one. And that's really it. And you're able to get it to sync just like this. So hopefully this wasn't too confusing and this helps somebody out there to daisy chain and sync together two Antec Prizm controllers. As you can see, I have a total of 8 fans in here. There's 3 in the front, 2 on the top, 1 in the back, and 2 on the bottom. So there's a decent amount of fans in this system, and that is how you get them daisy chained up and wired together. I have no advice on how to cable manage all of this because it is going to be a pain in the butt. But hopefully this video helps somebody out there. Once again, this is Corey for Corey's Computer Repair. Thank you for watching.